Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bryan Whitson, and today I'm going to be here presenting to you about the King Pavilion. So for those of you who don't know, King Pavilion is located on Iowa State's campus just west of the College of Design. It was completed back in 2009, and when complete, it costed just over $6.6 million. The gross square foot area for the building is just under 24,000 square feet, and the King Pavilion was certified under the LEED New Construction version 2.2, and it achieved LEED Platinum certification. So as we've been kind of discussing version 2009 LEED New Construction class, I wanted to do a comparison since King Pavilion was certified under version 2.2. So version 2.2 is only out of 69 points, where 2009 is out of 110. And really there were a few minor additions to the credits that were applied, along with variation, or some of the requirements in the credits varied. But overall, it was really the points that was distributed to each credit is what was the most significant difference, along with adding the regional priority credits to 2009. As you can see, they kind of redistributed the points between the various categories. You can see all the categories increase in points, and that's why it's out of 110. But in this next graphic, you can kind of see the weight that each category has on the overall system, or on the overall point system. So in version 2009, you can see that 23.6 of the points come from the sustainable sites, where in version 2.2, only 20.3% of those points is related to sustainable sites. So you can see for the sustainable sites, water efficiency, and energy and atmosphere, in 2009, all of those categories had a greater emphasis, where the material and resources, indoor environmental quality, and innovation and design all decreased in their emphasis on the overall point system. So with that kind of background, now I'm going to take you through a credit by credit discussion about the credits that LEED received. So in the sustainable sites, King Pavilion was able to obtain 12 of the 14 points, and the first two credits it received because it was built on a previous developed site and in an existing community with a density of 80,000 net square feet per acre, and that helped them attain those first two credits. Credit 3, because the King Pavilion was not built on a brownfield, it did not obtain those credits. So here's kind of just a picture of the exterior facade of King Pavilion. The next four credits the next 4 points in credit 4 refer to alternative transportation, and the first credit is to try to promote public transportation usage by the building occupants, and this is to decrease the number of single occupancy vehicles that are used by the building occupants. So King was able to obtain this credit or this point because there's 5 bus lines and multiple different bus stations located within under 1/10 of a mile from the King Pavilion, so it was pretty easy for them to obtain that point. Credit 4.2, King was actually able to obtain this credit in an interesting way, because as you can see, they have the bicycle storage in the bottom left photo just west of the building, so it was easy to meet that criteria. But the changing rooms, King Pavilion actually doesn't have any changing or shower rooms as this credit request. However, because the new Biorenewable Center, located just south of the College of Design, is being built right now, that building will have changing rooms that King said its occupants can use, so they were able to obtain that point that way. Credit 4.3 refers to, is to try to promote the use of low emission and fuel efficient vehicles, and King has 8 parking spaces that's reserved for these types of vehicles, and this represents 6% of the total parking lots or parking spaces available to King occupants. And then finally, credit 4.4 refers to the parking capacity, and since King was built on a pre-existing site, there was no new parking that was added to the parking lot, so since no new parking was added, they were able to obtain that point as well. The next 2 credits refer to the open space and restoring the native habitat here in Iowa. So they were able to obtain the next 2 credits because over half of the site has been restored with native plants and is dedicated to open space. And then credit 6.1 and 6.2 refer to the stormwater design, and the runoff was decreased by 58%, and the runoff quantity was decreased by 26%. And with that, 94% of the stormwater runoff is caught and treated by detention cells, which are located actually under those porous pavers, and native vegetation, which you can see that's located just west of the King Pavilion. Also, they have these gravel vans here that kind of help transport water from the surrounding areas to those porous pavers and the detention cells so they can be treated. Then that takes us into credit 7, which is the heat island effect. And for the non-roof elements, so credit 7.1, King was able to obtain because all the impervious surfaces, so such as this drive lane here, is all paved with non-colored concrete. Therefore, it absorbs a lot less heat than, say, asphalt or colored concrete. And then with 7.2, refers to the roof, the heat island effect on the roof. And since King Pavilion has a green roof, it significantly reduces the amount of heat that the roof would absorb, and therefore decreases the overall temperature within the building, which is a plus. Credit 8 refers to light pollution reduction, and because of the number of windows used for daylighting, the King Pavilion wasn't able to obtain this credit. Next, this brings us into the water efficiency category, and King was able to obtain 4 out of the 5 points here. And the first 2 credits refer to the water efficient landscaping, and since the vegetation that was used is native to Iowa, no water is needed to keep it watered, so no irrigation system exists. So because of this, they were able to obtain both credit 1.1 and credit 1.2. Credit 2 refers to wastewater, innovative wastewater technologies. Since no gray water or recycled rainwater system exists, they did not obtain those credits. Credit 3 refers to the water use reduction, and this is primarily with potable water. So in the bathrooms, they use dual flush toilets, ultra low flow urinals, and automatic sensors on the sink, toilets, and urinals. And this was reduced the potable water by over 50%, which definitely surpasses both those 2 criteria, but also they were able to get an exemplary performance credit here because they were so far past that 40% reduction, which is required for that EP credit there. So they were able to actually get those 2 credits along with that exemplary performance credit. That takes us next into the energy and atmosphere category. King was able to obtain 13 out of 17 points here. Most of those points actually came from credit 1, where they were able to obtain all 10 of the points, and that refers to optimizing the energy performance, and so that's kind of referring to the mechanical and the electrical systems. So one of the key components in King Pavilion is that it's naturally ventilated, meaning that there's no air conditioning unit, and it's able to do this through operable windows, a ventilation system, and dehumidifiers to keep conditions comfortable during the summer. And additionally to this, it has an improved envelope, a thermal envelope, photometric sensors, which reduce the amount of artificial light when there's a significant amount of daylighting coming through the building, and also demand control ventilation. So they were able to obtain all 10 points in that credit. Credit 2, there's no on-site renewable energy being generated on the King Pavilion site, so it did not obtain these credits. Enhanced commissioning, and the King Pavilion had commissioning activities began early in the design process and continued until system performance verification was completed, so I was able to obtain that credit pretty easily. Next, again, because there's no air conditioning unit, it did not receive credit 4, which refers to enhanced refrigerant management. So that brings us to credit 5, and the King Pavilion has multiple meters that calculate the amount of water use, the steam heat use, the plug power use, lighting power use, and the overall building system power use. So I was able to obtain that credit. And then with green power for credit 6, the College of Design actually purchased a 35% offset in renewable energy credits for the King Pavilion's energy consumption. So I was able to obtain that credit through that purchase. Next brings us into the materials and resource category. And King was able to obtain 7 of the 13 points. But this first credit they weren't able to achieve because the building reuse refers to if there was a pre-existing building on site and they were performing a renovation, they were able to, if they would have been able to use the building over again, they could have got those credits. But since there was no pre-existing building, King could not get those credits. But credit 2, 2.1 and 2.2 refer to construction waste management. And King Pavilion was able to divert 553 tons, or 95% of its construction waste was diverted from landfills to recycling centers. So it was able to achieve both those 2 points. Credit 3 again refers to if there was a pre-existing building. Since there wasn't, King couldn't obtain those credits. But credit 4.1 and 4.2 relate, as they are the recycled content. And King was able to have 33% of building materials by value were manufactured using recycled materials. And as you can see here in these 2 pictures, they actually used blue jean insulation to provide the insulation for the building. And also 75% of the steel is actually recycled steel. And in the restrooms, the countertops are made of 100% recycled paper, and the partitions are made of 100% recycled plastics. So because it was at 33% recycled content, it actually was able to also earn an exemplary performance here. So it got them those 2 credits along with that innovation design credit. Next we have regional materials, and that refers to credit 5.1 and 5.2. And 39% of the total building materials were extracted, processed, and manufactured within a 500-mile radius from the King Pavilion, so it was able to obtain those 2 points. There's no rapidly renewable materials used in King, so it didn't obtain credit 6. However, 100% of the wood used in the King Pavilion was harvested from Forest Stewardship Council's certified forest, so it was able to obtain that point as well. This brings us into the indoor environmental quality, and here King Pavilion was able to obtain 13 out of the 15 points possible. And the first credit they were able to obtain through monitoring carbon dioxide concentrations in the building, along with other air measurement devices in the mechanical system. Credit 2, it was not able to obtain the increased ventilation. However, credit 3 refers to the construction indoor air quality management plan. And during construction, the air handling units equipment was sealed and not used during construction. And certified MERV 13 filtration media was installed prior to occupancy to obtain that credit 3.1. And then 3.2, before occupancy, tests were done to ensure that the VOCs, or the volatile organic compounds, concentrations did not exceed their allowable limits, allowing them to receive credit 3.2. Then the next 4 points in credit 4 refer to low emitting materials, and all materials used in King are certified as low or non-emitting of VOCs. And the reason why you don't want to have those VOCs is because they can be odorous, irritating, and or harmful to the building's occupants. So you definitely want to minimize those. So they're able to obtain 3 of those points. They weren't able to obtain credit 4.3 because no carpet was installed, so they lost out on that point. But credit 5 refers to the indoor chemical and pollutant source control, and this was obtained through entryway walk-off mats, vestibules, room separators, and required ventilation systems. Additionally, I know spray rooms are located there, and those are isolated from the overall mechanical system of the building, so that those pollutants aren't spread to the building's occupants. So they're able to obtain that credit 5. Credit 6.1 refers to the lighting in the building, and through the use of clear stories that slanted roofs, so you can see the 2 clear stories here and the sloped roof section there, and just the number of windows, they were able to reduce the need for artificial lighting through photometric sensors, which means that during the day when a lot of daylight's coming in, the amount of artificial light that's being output will decrease, because that daylighting will provide sufficient foot candles for building occupants' use. So it's able to decrease overall electricity used for the lights, allowing it to receive credit 6.1. And then 6.2 refers to the thermal comfort, and each studio has user adjustable temperature and sensor to control the amount of heat that's being delivered to each studio. So here's kind of just a picture in that lower left corner of those temperature sensor control devices. Credit 7.1 refers to the thermal comfort design, and the HVAC system and building envelope for the King Pavilion was designed to meet ASHRAE standard 55, which refers to the thermal comfort conditions of human occupants, so I was able to obtain that credit. The verification in credit 7 refers to, there was a thermal comfort study or a survey that was conducted within the first 18 months to ensure all building occupants were satisfied with, or not all building occupants, but at least 80% of building occupants were satisfied with the current mechanical system. And then for credit 8.1 and 8.2, those refer to the daylighting views, and daylighting and views. And 99% of the area in the King Pavilion has a view or line of sight to daylighting. This is through the interior storefront glazing system, end corner unit glazing systems, the sloped roof section that we kind of discussed in the previous slide in the picture. Also the sloped roof section on the green roof of King Pavilion, and also that sunscreen that you can see here in this picture that allows light to penetrate through that kind of grading system. So also with credit 8 in this category, it was able to receive another exemplary performance in the innovation and design category, which is kind of what's coming up next. So King was able to obtain 4 of the 5 points in this category, and you can kind of see we already discussed both the first, we already discussed all of these, and then also because of the AP work on the project, they were able to get that credit as well. So this brings, so in version 2.2, when you sum up all these totals, it comes to 53 out of the 69 points, which allowed it to receive that platinum certification. You can see the distribution of points in the various 6 categories here, and you see that the majority of the points came from the sustainable sites, the energy and atmosphere, and the indoor environmental quality. And then since we've been dealing a lot with the since we've been learning about version 2009 in class, I decided to go through and figure out what points LEED would achieve if it were certified in version 2009. So as you can see, it would obtain 83 of the 110 points associated to version 2009. So it would still achieve that platinum certification. And again, most of the points that it's receiving are from the sustainable sites, energy and atmosphere, and indoor environmental quality. So with the King achieving the platinum certification, it meets Iowa State's current Live Green initiative, which requires all new or retrofitted buildings to achieve LEED Silver status or higher. And with that, the King Pavilion definitely promotes sustainability and just shows the occupants as well as the Iowa State campus how our buildings are becoming more sustainable. And with that, if there's any questions you may have, I can answer those at this time. Thank you.
All right, good job. So when you talk about the detention cell,
yeah.
When the water go to the detention cell, how that works? You talk about the treatment for the water, right?
Right. So I'm actually going to back this up to one of the slides in sustainable sites where you can see the porous pavers, and
yep.
Pretty much those detention cells are located underneath those porous pavers. So right here are those porous pavers, and they're located on the north and south side of the King Pavilion. And what those porous pavers do is they allow water to, they're permeable, so water is able to go through them. And then beneath them, it's pretty much a detention basin where before the water leaves the site, sediments are allowed to settle out there, and then the water is carried off through the storm system or storm sewer system. And so it decreases the runoff and also allows sediments to settle out. So that's kind of how the detention cells work.
All right. Also, in your innovative innovation in design process, you have 4 out of 6, 4 credits, 4 points out of 6 points.
Is that for the LEED 2009?
Yes.
Okay.
You talk about the water use reduction in optimize energy performance. How do you get that percentage number
So you're talking about the
to
innovation
prove
design.
the credits? Yes.
So in the innovation design for the water efficiency credit, the water efficiency credit 3, I believe it was able to get, because it had 33% or over 50% of its water was potable water use that's used for those fixtures, so the sinks, the urinals, and the toilets. Since over 50% of that water was reduced, it was able to pass the threshold of, in the ordinary, just in the water efficiency, 3.1 refers to, I believe, 20% of, or 10% of potable water reduction, and, or no, it's 20 for the 3.1 and then 30% reduction for 3.2. And so the exemplary performance credit requires that 40% be reduced. So since over 50% was reduced, it got that water efficiency credit. And then you talked about
the percentage. How do you get the number? Like how
Oh.
can you prove you get 50% reduction or 20% reduction?
I actually got it from the one of the sites I looked up for the King Pavilion that they developed. But how they would determine that, I would imagine, is they would have, you'd have your ordinary fixtures, and then they'd compare it to the low flow fixtures that they put in. So by having the dual flush toilets, they would compare that to just a regular toilet. That's kind of that's out in the standards, along with the urinals. So since it's a low flow urinal, they compare that to just a regular urinal and can compare the amount of water reduction saving they would have.
All right,
So.
good. The last question is, I didn't really see a lot of integration between the credits. Can you describe or just explain how the credits was integrated with each other?
Okay, so with
How the credits gonna affect each other?
so one of the big credits that kind of that deals with a lot of things is that EA Credit 1,
Yep.
which refers to that optimizing energy performance. So that refers to mechanical systems, the lighting systems, and with that, that EA Credit 1 would refer to a couple of the credits in IE, in the indoor environmental quality, so such as like the daylighting. It would refer to that because by having all that daylighting come into the building, it would decrease the amount of artificial lighting needed. So it would lower your so it would lower those. So the EA Credit 1 is based off those ASHRAE standards. So since it would be, you'd be reducing the amount of artificial lighting, it would be optimizing the building systems and therefore reduce the amount of energy. So it goes through the daylighting, but also through the ventilation system, the mechanical systems that with the user occupant or the user controlled thermal comfort, so the controllability of systems. So through the temperature sensors at each studio, that would also relate to that EA Credit 1. So yeah, and then also the green roof would relate to multiple credits in the sustainable sites. So to make sure that that deals with the runoff and just the native vegetation and the heat island effect. So.
All right. Good job.
Thanks.